Folks, that was Krista Springer. Krista, you're a composer, you are a vocalist, and you have a magnificent way with your Tibetan bowls. So, could we thank her one more time? Oh, my. Krista comes, she's a regular at Unity Christ Church of Bon Air, and so they get to experience that more and more as she composes. But it's just so refreshing to have that vibration going through us today, because that's the vibration going through us on the cosmic Mother Day. So I'm just setting up a few things so we can share together. This day, this special day. Now, I have to say that I want to wish all the mothers here happy Mother's Day. All of the men who are mothering and nurturing others, happy Mother's Day to you too. And all of those out in live streaming land, all of those across the country that could not be with us today, and for those of you whose mothers have passed, I think it's a day of celebrating life, don't you? It feels like it's more expansive just than to be with our mother. And also it's a little expansive. I want to invite any new couples who are considering having a child and mothering. I want to invite you just to do one thing. I want you to go ahead, get a jar of peanut butter, go ahead and spread it across your walls. Spread it across your floors and spread it on you. And then spend a couple of hours cleaning up and ask yourself, am I ready to be a mother? Because if you're not used to having these little things around, and you think they're silly, or if you can't stand little squeaky little things, no, it isn't time. Your time has not come. So that's a little bit about mothers. Sometimes it does get to be a little bit of a Hallmark day, doesn't it? Cards and gifts and maybe lunch and cake and all of that. Well, I have to share with you that it's kind of that way at my house, because Richard likes to give me a gift on Mother's Day. And so it came in a beautiful box, a little feather on top. And one of my daughters sent me this little spritzer for the African violets. Isn't that just adorable? And then Richard, who had gone to Unity Village last week, came home with something kind of unusual for me. Didn't even know what it was. So you too will be surprised, I hope. It is a selenite chakra charger. Now, every home needs one. But selenite is that stone that's supposed to take away the negative energy. And so if you put chakra stones on it that are designed to represent the different chakras on the body to clear the negative energy, then it will charge, and you can just feel that there is that energy bringing them, magnetism bringing them close together. So I'm just going to leave you with this. Imagine me at home with a chakra pyramid on my head, and wish me happy Mother's Day for it. Thank you, Richard. Oh, no, imagine Richard sharing that with me. Okay. Sometimes, as we think of our mothers, we have this cultural idealization of how we think our mothers need to be so perfect and that they've done us wrong if they're not. So today, what I'd like to suggest is that you and I move to a place of a neutral zone where we can say, Mom's neither good nor bad, awful or else wise, but Mom did commit to what she was willing to commit to in motherhood, and forgive her for what she was not able to provide to you. And when we begin to do that, guys, we have moved in a huge way, an expansive way in our hearts to really get to this cosmic mother understanding that it's all about compassion. It's all about love. It's not about meeting our specific total needs and everything that we want. It's truly much, much larger than that. Those of you who like the Persian poet Rumi, may know this line. He says, "Out beyond ideas of wrong thinking and right thinking, there is a field, and I'll meet you there." That's the neutral zone. And that's the place in consciousness we want to be in this morning with the greater mother, the cosmic mother. Yesterday I was reading an article by a woman. Her name is Simone Lipscomb. She wrote Mothering the Creative Process. And she got me thinking, well, what is this mothering all about, this greater mothering? And I came away with three things. That the cosmic mother, the divine feminine in us, knows the birthing and the creative process in us. She also knows how to call us on our stuff, and she also knows how to forgive us and invite us to come home to our true selves. So let's think about this first aspect of the cosmic mother who understands the birthing creative process. Those of us who choose motherhood know what it's like to go through 9 months of pregnancy and then labor and delivery and the unknown about all of that. And when a child when a child demands to be born, we have no choice but just surrender to it. And then we know we've committed not just to this birth process, but to the lifelong process of mother-child. Now, many men also know the birthing process. They go along with the women now, which I think is just fabulous. That didn't happen 40 years ago when I was giving birth. So I'm just so pleased to know that there's more to mothering than just seeing the female that's involved in the birthing process. But now let's look at how this child grows up. And from the perspective of an adult looking back at the mother, we can say, I did not get all my mothering needs, either from my mother or my father. I didn't get the nurturing I wanted and needed. And we can be in a place where we're actually holding on to hurt and resentment. I want to suggest to you that the cosmic mother calls us beyond that, into a place where we can say, I'm choosing to remember that, but it's not important to me anymore. What's important is that I now can mother myself. I have spiritual powers that are cosmic in proportion. And so I am not here to hold on to anything on this earthly plane that pulls me or anyone else down. Can we understand that? That's our creative process. Now, Charles Fillmore said to us, he's our co-founder in Unity, that Unity is based on this spiritual understanding of the creative process in each of us based on the 7 days of creation. So step one is understanding that God is source, creator, and that we are filled with an abundance of everything in this universe to survive and to thrive. And if we go even further, we move 6 days into that creation of manifesting everything that we need. On the 7th day, we rest. And that creative process is our spiritual perspective of every new thing we do. Suppose you want a new job. Well, rather than going about it in such a haphazard way, stopping to think about what you need, how you go about it, who to contact, puts it into a spiritual place where you can say, aha, let there be light, and I will have answers to what I need. The same is true for a relationship, buying a house, selling a car, and so on and on it goes. We're applying it practically to our personal lives so that you and I can see that we're in the creative process with everything we do every day, down to the water we drink and the food we eat. That's part of who we are. So that cosmic mother is the one that brings us into mothering ourselves, being neutral, bringing in the light, and then letting us go and do whatever. You know, it's like standing or waiting in the womb. That's what it's like. Now, we're not always patient as females during those 9 months. But if we take it into our daily lives and say, all right, 9 months, I'm not going to be very patient, but perhaps I can use that time wisely to let go negative thoughts, bring in positive ideas, do whatever I can do because I'm getting ready to birth something new in my life. And then, as if we are bringing in spirit, we are inspired to go ahead about that creative process. Now, if any of you have stopped in your lives and thought about the creative individuals you are, good for you. But today I want you to know that is a huge part of who you are. And taking that with you to say, in every way, I'm bringing in light in my life, males and females, that's of cosmic mother proportion. So that mother is the one that embodies the cheerleader. It's like Walt Whitman. Have you ever read Leaves of Grass? Where Walt Whitman is saying, oh, to the contract worker, oh, to the highwayman, oh, to the architect, to the teacher, to the social worker, to the musician. And he lists on all the ways that mankind is creative in nature and demonstrates it through the work they do and who they are. Well, that's that first cosmic mother who allows us all the space we need to be creative. Now, there's a second one. As the first one would say, you're a work of art, go and multiply. The second cosmic mother voice would say, you're a real work of art, aren't you? And she'd say, get your act together. Now, that's a different tone. That's the tone that a mother's going to use when they want to have you wise up, huh? So, in looking at Proverbs, the first chapter, a wise woman speaks. Listen to these words. Wisdom cries out in the street. In the square, she raises her voice. In the busy corner, she cries out. At the entrance to the city gates, she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? Give heed to my reproof. I will pour out my thoughts to you, and my words will be made known to you. Now, that's the voice of the cosmic mother who is saying, listen, O you who have deaf ears. As long as you hang on to some of these habits, and I'm talking about big things, big ways of thinking, perhaps ways of staying in one's ego, attaching to things that are no longer good for us, maintaining judgments against someone. These are the bigger things of cosmic proportion that we need to examine and that cosmic mother can challenge us to look at. When we look within, our job is to let go seeing things as being split, good or bad, right or wrong. Our job is to just say, get moving. That's the cosmic mother. There's not a condemnation in her voice other than listen up. Come on. And because of that, there's love and there's understanding and there's this desire. You can say it's the nudge, the push of the Holy Spirit in each of us to get our lives in order. And when we do, every new decision we make will be to leave the old way behind and be reborn into a new way. And that is the way of knowing our true selves as divine. There's a story that a minister in Naples, Florida, tells. His name is Reverend Art Holt, Unity Church in Naples. And he says that a group went out to Hawaii, and they were so excited. They had meetings, but several of groups went off, and they explored the bamboo forest, and they went to a waterfall, and they swam in tropical waters, and then found their way back on the pathway to their meeting. Well, another group did the same, but they got lost afterwards. They started going in circles, and the group started getting very critical of who was leading. There seemed to be a great deal of angst among them to get back to the meeting and so forth. And one woman even broke down in tears and created a scene. So the woman who talked about it the next day and reported it had been a huge learning experience, and she was laughing as she was reporting it. She said, "You know what? I saw in that woman who broke down crying, I saw a helpless, dependent female, and I resented it, and I didn't like it, and I didn't want anything to do with her. But," she said, "I really began to have this nudge or this part of me that said, wait a minute, think of this differently. What if you supported and encouraged this person and comforted this person? Maybe it's a cry for help, that she's not so alone." And when the woman said, "You know, I made this shift, and I did that inner work, and all of a sudden we found our way out on the pathway back to the meeting place in the hotel." And I think that it's a great story because what it captures for me is that as you and I stop, we just turn to Spirit in prayer, and we settle into a meditative moment, then we shift something in us, and it opens up our outer world. The inner and the outer are mirror images of one another. Now, I say that because that is that part of the cosmic mother that just wants to remove blocks, wants to nudge us, wants to move us along, expressing in wisdom and in our own power to shift and change. Now, there's a third part of the cosmic mother that I think is just fabulous for us to consider. It's the part of us that knows how to forgive, that encourages forgiveness, and brings us home to our true selves. Any of you who are familiar with George Lamsa and the Lamsa Bible know that he studied in the Middle East. He understands the history and the language of the people there, and he gave insight into the story of the prodigal son. Now, if we remember that verse from the 15th chapter of Luke, it says this: "But the father said to his servants, 'Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and make merry.'" What George Lamsa says about that scripture is that, having lived in that area, he knows that for far too many centuries, those women in that area had been relegated to the background. They were playing very, very important roles, but they were still invisible. So here's what George Lamsa said: "Let us now revise that scripture to read this way: that the mother of the prodigal son was the one who greeted the son on the road. That it was the mother who said, 'Yes, you are forgiven. who stood there with her arms open saying, "Come home. You are totally forgiven." She's the one that coordinated the kitchen staff. She's the one that baked the bread. She's the one that got everything organized and then stepped back. And then the father stepped forward and got the credit in the scriptures, which we can understand. That is the custom. But how interesting to think that ultimately that's the role of that cosmic mother in our lives, invisible, but at work in each of us, so we get the credit. We look good if we're expressing as this expansiveness of love and compassion. But ultimately, we want to grow in the way of that creative process, in the way of love and compassion, don't we? If we think once again about the poem from Rumi, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. We can call it a cosmic neutral field, where we move beyond who did what, who was right, who was wrong, who was good, who was bad, or whatever happened, good or bad. We just move way beyond that, and we start thinking in greater terms in our own lives that we can mother ourselves and fill any deficits we may have experienced, that we have the capacity to be compassionate and fulfill any developmental step. If we didn't get to Busch Gardens as a child, well, then we can buy our own ticket. We can be so much greater than just these negative characteristics or behaviors that we carry inside of ourselves. When we loose them up and let them go, we've moved into that field of neutrality. We've moved into that field of compassion and love, and we have moved into meaningful relationships with one another, where we encourage growth and we don't hold back from encouraging growth. If you and I can say that that's the field we want to play in, that's God's playground, that's the field of neutrality, of love, expansiveness, and compassion, and each of us commit to that, then I'll meet you there. God bless you this Mother's Day, and I wish each of you a happy, expansive consciousness of the Cosmic Mother. Thank you.